You're listening to The Wedding Whisperer with Sarah Burton of Simply Love Studio in Lexington, Kentucky. Although today's guest is a little newer to the Lexington area, she is not new to the hospitality industry. It is Emily Mayworm. She is the catering sales manager here at the Campbell House in Lexington, Kentucky. Emily, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, Sarah. This is truly an honor, and I'm excited to get into everything with you about the Campbell House and more.
Perfect. So whenever we first met, I was really impressed with your background in the hospitality industry. I think you've done a lot of the things that I wish I could have done and started with. So share a little bit about that with folks listening.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say my background started more so in operations. Originally started with a culinary degree and working in banquets as a cook, doing large-scale events at the Art Institute of Chicago. And from there, it just sort of grew. I moved to the front of the house. I got a bachelor's degree in hospitality management, started as a server, have done server assistant, have done bartending, eventually becoming server captain, and then moving into the event world again and becoming the event operations manager at a Soho house in Chicago. And that's where I got the bulk of my management experience as far as front of house events and running the show, all the communication with the client on the day of, with the kitchen. From there, I went on to a really large catering company in Chicago called Blue Plate Catering. I managed their tasting rooms and their on-site event space that was essentially in their headquarters where the sales office and the production kitchen was. They had a small event space as well. So I managed that space, the tastings, and they took their tastings very seriously there. Each tasting was like a mini event. And so it took a lot of legwork and a lot of time and a lot of overseeing and effort. Shortly after that, COVID hit, which sort of crumbled our industry a little bit, as you know.
A little bit.
Just a little bit, which led me to, take some time out of the industry, but also brought me here to Lexington. Moved here to be closer to a friend and really just to kind of get out of the city that I, was born and raised in. And so in June of this year is 3 years since I moved here to Lexington. My first big job here was at Weisberg Cider. I was the general manager there. So I did play a big role in their taproom events as well as their private events, but was also managing the bar and kind of just managing the whole space there. After doing that for 2 years, I decided that I really wanted to focus more on events and saw the opportunity here at the Campbell House and applied. And it's been different, but in a good way. And I feel like I'm still learning, but also still able to use, all of the skills that I have developed over time from my various positions in a different way, in a different capacity now.
And I really feel like there is something just weird in our blood that, like, when you start in the wedding and event world, it's you crave it. And you think you want to get away from it, and then 5 minutes later, you need that adrenaline again.
Yeah. And it keeps you really busy. I will say, as focusing on the wedding market is still relatively new. I've had my hand in helping plan various weddings. I've planned and worked many rehearsal dinners. As a line staff, I worked many weddings, but this is my first position where I'm focusing on it. So that is where I feel like I'm still learning, and having you as a resource is amazing, and being able to network with different vendors in the wedding specific market, I think is really where I'm still learning and growing, and is what makes it exciting, I think.
Personally, I have been involved and worked with the Campbell House for probably 13 or 14 years now. I have been here through all of the renovations, all of the management and ownership. That's changed a few times, but you are in a fantastic place right now with your ownership, your management, your team that you have here. Renovations for the ballroom finished late 2019, very early 2020. The ballroom is incredible. I mean, there's no other way to say that. There are so many things and so many details that went into it. It's like a sophisticated Kentucky. What are some of the words that you use to describe it if folks have not been into the Campbell House since your renovations in 2020?
Well, one of the great parts about us is that we are Hilton Hotel, but we are part of their Curio collection, which means that it is a lifestyle brand and you can really focus on what makes your city unique. And I think they drilled into that really well. And so, horses, bourbon, Kentucky blue, bluegrass, Southern hospitality, just that warm, inviting. It is unique space. It's called the barn, but it's sort of the opposite of that in the way that it is sophisticated, but it just drills into that Kentucky tradition. So if someone is really wanting their guests to experience Lexington at its finest, it's exactly that.
And then you also added a restaurant. That was the 2019-2020 range as well.
Yes.
And that is the Rackhouse Tavern?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was a completely new space. I think originally there were some offices sort of in that area, but they blew it out and up and created a really unique dining space that's open, inviting. We have garage doors that open with a great patio. Of course, there's bourbon barrels. There's a wood-burning fireplace. There's some lounge seating. And then, of course, over 300 different bourbons.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know a lot. And I think they do offer a few different flight options as well. So whether you're having a private event, a banquet, a wedding with us, or just staying here or just visiting the Rack House, we kind of keep that similar vibe throughout the whole experience.
And you have the barn, which is going to be your largest event space. And how many does that hold for a reception?
For weddings, we like to say up to 250, in rounds of 10 with space for a dance floor and or staging. You could fit a little bit more, but 250 is a good, comfortable number that fills it out and makes it, look full without too cramped and just offers a variety of options as far as setup.
And close to the barn area and the main part of the hotel is the Rockbridge Reserve, which is a smaller ballroom. Do any of your couples use that as a space?
It can be used for a variety of different things. It can be used for, small ceremony or, I'm even having a wedding in October in there. It's a smaller wedding, but also can be used for farewell brunches, rehearsal dinners. It's very close to it. So if you got an idea in mind, it can be used in creatively as an additional space as well.
And you said smaller guest count, like how many seated with a dance floor and stuff?
I believe we're doing the one that we have coming up in October, I think is capping at 70.
Oh, okay. So a good little intimate space.
And they did want a dance floor and a space for the DJ. I think the bar maybe just outside of the room. But yeah, we're able to accommodate all different types of events and weddings here, definitely.
And that is a space that I would say is probably underutilized a little bit. I have been to a corporate event in there. I think it was a luncheon a while ago. And it's just a very neutral space. It's not super fancy. It's not the barn. But it's like I said, it's neutral. It's a blank canvas. You can do with it what you want to, which is what I like about it. And like you said, it's perfect for the morning after, rehearsal dinner, those kind of things.
Yes, yeah. And a ceremony as well.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yes, so you don't have to do a room flip and
Right,
stuff.
exactly, yeah.
And then in addition to the large ballroom space, you also have the smaller ballroom. Does it have a name as well?
Yeah, that's the Bluegrass Ballroom.
Bluegrass Ballroom. Okay.
And that is actually the original ballroom space that was here at the Campbell House. So I get a lot of people coming in for various site visits who are like, my mother got married here. My grandparents had an anniversary party here. So it's completely renovated. It matches the style and decor of all the other meeting spaces. It mimics the chandeliers in the barn. It sort of has that blank canvas vibe to it because, you could split it in half. So again, that I guess our junior ballroom, but it's bigger than you could imagine. Like you could do so many things in there.
And that's one of the things that I love about hotels is everything is all here. It doesn't all have to be in the same room for the entire weekend. We're seeing welcome parties being so much more popular now. You can literally move throughout the entire hotel and never be in the same space with your guests for the weekend.
Right. And the beautiful thing about the Bluegrass Ballroom is that there's a back entrance and a whole parking lot in the back. So we could theoretically have 2 weddings or 2 whole events going on where you're almost not even bumping into each other. They have their own set of restrooms, their own entrance. They both have their own pre-function space. So it's a really awesome feature that we have that ability to sort of break it up like that.
And if someone is listening and maybe they have gotten engaged recently and they're hearing the words pre-function for the first time, will you share with them what that is?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I know the exact term, but we use it for cocktail hour. We use it for to set the bar up and, for memory tables or, just general cocktailing. You could have some reception boards out there. It's essentially where you're hanging out before the big event, the main event starts. And it's always nice if someone needs a breather, needs to step out, you're still part of the event. It's still very close by. Usually there's cocktail tables out there to kind of bring it all together. But it's just an additional space that's typically used for weddings, specifically for cocktail hour. But, for conventions, oftentimes there's vendors or something out there. And so it kind of expands the square feet, essentially, of the space by being able to utilize that outside area.
And then I know the barn area has some seating throughout the hallway. Am I correct on that?
There's a little bit of seating, yeah, and we could always add more, just depending on, and that's another thing, is that we can build it up from scratch, essentially. So if you have ideas, we're welcome to making them happen for you. The Bluegrass Ballroom does actually have an entire small lounge area that is typically included in any rental of the Bluegrass Ballroom. So there is some soft seating, which I always like to point out and show because sometimes people want to sit.
That's usually me. Like I've hit my limit with being with people and I just need a minute to be away.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. So I always like to point out that area.
Talking about the hotel, getting its whole overhaul and additions, all of the rooms were completely redone as well.
Yeah.
They are everything you mentioned about the ballroom. They're sophisticated. They're Kentucky. They're probably some of the most unique guest rooms in Lexington.
Yeah. And that is that beautiful part about us being part of the Curio collection is that we don't have to be cookie cutter. It's an old building, so we almost couldn't be. A lot of the, the shapes of the rooms are different and they all offer different views and different, spaces. So there's no one room is identical to the other. But it does, again, kind of drill into that bluegrass vibe. But there's, horse pictures. There's a lot of leather and brown woods. And it really matches sort of that Kentucky bluegrass feel that the barn offers, as well as the lobby.
One of the things I love most about your renovations are the suites that you have. Mm-hmm. You have 3 deluxe suites now. And honestly, the first time I saw these, I was blown away that these were here in Lexington. Share with those listening about your suites and what they look like, what all is included with them.
Yeah, they're definitely unique and special and often utilized by brides, especially getting ready or on the night of the wedding. But they all have a separate sleeping area with a door on it and then a separate sitting area. 2 of them have sort of a large dining room table. There's fireplaces. There's soft seating lounge furniture, a wet bar. All of them have a half bathroom. 2 of them are almost identical in shape where they do have that large dining area. And then the other one is a little bit smaller where it doesn't have the dining area, but it still has that door to keep it separate. And they are just really comfortable, spacious. Again, with that extra bathroom is wonderful if you're getting ready with all your bridesmaids, or if you're utilizing it as a hospitality room, just having family hanging out. It's really comfortable, kind of mimics like a 1-bedroom apartment, basically. And then, of course, it has that same look and feel of the other hotel rooms.
So we're sitting in the Kentucky room right now recording, and I will say that this is for sure bigger than any apartment I lived in. Even probably my 2-bedroom apartment. I think it's probably bigger than it.
Yeah.
It has probably, this is a good 6-foot table, if not maybe a little bit more, for hair and makeup, for all that to be spread out everywhere. There are so many places in here for your photographer to do detail photos, flat lays. This is literally the perfect getting ready room.
Yes. Don't forget the cloth tub as well.
Oh, yes. And then you do decorate the suites for Christmas, don't you?
Yes. And, I haven't been here for the holidays, so I don't exactly know what they put in them. But I do recall seeing some photos. There was a Christmas tree and some lights and stuff like that, which is a nice touch, as well as our lobby and all that.
One of the things that you mentioned before we started recording is that these are actually not on the website to be booked by the public, which I found interesting because I had recommended these to some of my brides throughout the years if they are on this side of town, like at Rail Barn or Copperoo or somewhere, that I suggested they look here for suites. And every time I would go to the website, I'm like, oh, they must be booked already.
Right.
So that's why they are not on the website to be booked.
Yeah, just because we only have 3 of them, we really want to reserve them, specifically for brides and grooms. If you host the wedding with us here in the barn, then we will give a complimentary night stay to the bride and groom on the night of the wedding in one of these suites. So we really want to protect them so that we can offer them to our guests as an upgrade, as something that really is just a special edition. On the flip side, for conventions or corporate events, maybe the planner or the client CEO or something like that, we may want to upgrade them or offer them a hospitality suite or something like that. So we really want to protect them to be used for those special moments more than anything. We do, however, have some smaller suites that are still 1-bedrooms with a door to separate the living, like the seating area from the sleeping area, that are available to book online, as well as can be booked in room blocks and stuff like that, that just offer a little additional space. Good for groomsmen to get ready in because they don't require as much space.
Yeah.
More so just to hang out in. Or, mother of the bride, if she wants an additional space. So those are bookable online as well as part of room blocks.
A lot of times when couples look at a hotel for their wedding, they will quickly learn that when they reach out, they will have someone that they connect with then that will show them the property, that will book them, and then they go off to a different person. Mm-hmm. Whatever to finish the details, and that will be there on the wedding day, that kind of thing. When a couple comes to the Campbell House, do they work with you the entire time, or will they get moved to someone else?
So as it stands now, when they hired me on, the way the position is set up is to be able to focus on weddings. In that regard, there will not be another person to kind of take over. I am typically, unless I am out of town or something, I'm typically the first person to respond to the inquiry or respond to the phone call if I'm in the office. And then from there, getting them rates and availability and photos, and then moving on to site visit. Once they sign the contract, I'm the point person for pretty much everything. On the day of, I'm always there as part of the venue. We have a wonderful banquet team who will take over essentially the operations, but they know everything that I know as far as the planning and the detailing and the timeline and who's the contact. So outside of, the banquet manager and the banquet team handling the event itself, I would be their contact throughout it all. And that's even to say if you have a ceremony and a reception elsewhere, but a room block with us. If it's wedding related, I'm your girl, and I'm your girl through the whole experience.
Since you mentioned room blocks, what is the process for room blocks here?
Yeah, so with room blocks, we start them with a minimum of 10 rooms, and then you're required to fulfill 80% of the rooms.
Tell me a little bit about how April and October dates affect your room rates and room blocks here.
April and October affect them greatly. Given our location, we're really close to Keeneland. We're really close to all of the action. April and October is gorgeous here in Lexington. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot to do. So the hotel itself is typically very busy, and that does affect the rates. That being said, if you do a room block with us, whether it's on its own or through a wedding or an event here as well, it will always be less than what is online. So even if it's higher in April or October from, January or July, it will be less than what you would see available online. So there are still benefits of doing it. You'll save a little bit of money, and then you'll have a really great centralized location.
And that goes back to, I always tell couples not to freak out when they see prices online from vendors. It's always best to reach out because every scenario is going to be different. You have to put prices online just in general, but you get your customized pricing whenever you reach out, you do your tour, you talk about your dates, and come up with a game plan.
Absolutely. And whereas sometimes we're not able to be flexible with, say, the food and beverage minimum or the venue fee in April, October, oftentimes we can be flexible in other ways where if you have a rehearsal dinner or a farewell brunch with us, maybe there's not an additional venue fee. Or maybe the food and beverage minimum is combined between the two. Again, throwing in the suite for the night of. So the food and beverage minimum may or may not be as flexible, but, give us a call. We're happy to work with people and customize to suit them. If you're flexible with your date at all, we're happy to be flexible as well. The rates are what they are, but I'm meeting with my director, almost daily to discuss people's budgets and what they are looking for and what they're interested in. And so I'm here as that liaison between you and the hotel, and there are definitely benefits and flexibility out there. So it's definitely recommended to either call directly or reach out. And again, if it's wedding related, you're likely going to be discussing it with me.
I'm a big fan of weddings at hotels. I feel like for so long, it had such a negative connotation to it. And I don't know why. I feel like we always heard that they only serve chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans. And that is so far away from the truth.
Yeah.
With a hotel, there's so much included. It's your event space. It's your venue coordinator. It's your tables, your chairs, your linens, your china, your flatware, your bars in-house. Honestly, I think it makes it so much easier for couples because there is so much included.
Yeah, and I've been experiencing that lately where folks have been coming in. And of course, I ask them, are you looking at any other venues, any other hotels? And oftentimes they're deciding between us or a winery or something like that. And, whereas we cannot provide the same experience that a vineyard or a winery would, we can simplify the process for the bride and groom. If they're having it out at a venue that's, in the middle of nowhere, there's so much more that they have to do to kind of coordinate it. And then people are traveling, and there's just, like I said, just a lot of other details that go into it. Whereas here at the hotel, we want to make it easy for you, make it easy for your planners, your designers, where you want to work together and offer a really great centralized location for you and your guests. Yeah, we serve chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans, but we also serve a whole lot of other things. We have a large banquet catering menu that our chef is heavily involved in the development of, but we can also make and create and customize menus to what you would like to serve. There's many other plethora of items that our chef is well equipped to put together for you that's not on the menu as well. So I always encourage brides and grooms to let me know what they're thinking. And I'm happy to go talk with our chef and see, can we do this? Can we do it at this scale? And how much is it going to cost? So I think that is what makes the Campbell House unique, essentially, is that it not being cookie cutter like some. I think that's where the downfall of the hotel wedding is that if the banquet space feels like, oh, well, there was a convention in here or a business meeting in here yesterday and now it's a wedding today, they don't have as much flexibility maybe, or it doesn't have the look you're looking for. That's where we're separate and we're different, is that the barn is unique and the space is unique, and we provide an experience that's, I would say, unique to other hotels. But then you still get all the benefits of a traditional hotel with the restaurant and, the centralized location, the various venues for hanging out and having different events throughout the whole weekend.
This is going to be a really hard question to give an exact answer to, and that's okay.
Yes.
You mentioned the price. Can you give a starting price for like a buffet or a plated meal just to give folks an idea?
Yeah. Based on our catering menus, the plated meals for chicken would start at $45. It does include, coffee and tea, as well as salad and dessert, all kind of in that price. It can go as high as $60 or something if you're looking at fillets, and that's for plated. Buffets for dinner will start around $50 and go up to about $60. That because we kind of bulk up. There's usually 2 proteins. There's usually quite a bit of sides, but it does also include, the dessert and the coffee and tea as well. And that being said, if we're customizing a menu, the price will likely be customized too.
Do you see more couples doing buffet or plated?
Honestly, it can go either way. It's really per your guest. You know your family better than I do. And if you know that they love to, go back for seconds, that they, we have an Italian buffet and they're just going to pile on the pasta and that's what makes them and you happy, then that's great. And, we could put the buffet out in the hall, the pre-function area, to kind of keep it separate. We can have it in the room. And then some people just love the experience of being served at the table. And the portion is still very generous. It's just that's the portion. So that's why it's priced, I guess, a little bit lower. But in the time that I've been here at the Campbell House, I would say it's probably 60-40, 60 plated to 40% buffet.
See, I would have guessed probably like 80 to 20 being plated. So that's really interesting.
Yeah, and I'm getting a lot of questions about, I haven't had any weddings yet thus far doing this here specifically, but we talk a lot about more stations.
Yes.
A little more interactive, less a buffet line and more there's a slider station or a pasta station, and it's sort of maybe scattered a little bit more throughout the space. Those folks are the ones who want their people to be kind of mingling, make it more of like a lively party. So I think, and those types of things, again, are not necessarily on our menu, but I get a lot of questions for that too. So that's somewhere, often its own category where the standard buffet maybe makes someone feel like it's less lively, less of a party. And so these like smaller stations that essentially would be like, well, I love mac and cheese. I want my people to have just a big mac and cheese station where they can put their own toppings, stuff like that. And so I get a lot of questions where I'm going back to my chef and figuring out how much would this cost per person and stuff like that. And so, yeah, it's somewhere between those 3, maybe evenly distributed.
So for stations, we've got like mac and cheese is popular, mashed potato bar.
Yeah.
The sliders are popular with some like French fries and stuff. Mm-hmm. What are some other stations you see?
I have one coming up. It's actually not for a wedding, but we were discussing doing like poke bowl station.
Oh,
yeah. So I was really excited about that. We can get sushi grade tuna and salmon in, and then with sushi rice and just like the various toppings, edamame, stuff like that. So that one I'm really excited about.
And just like the food and customizing it, you can also customize the bar for everyone. And that's one of the big benefits to being at a hotel property is the sky's the limit. Like you said, your family, and you can work with the couples to be able to help them stay on budget when it comes to beer, wine, signature drink, those kind of things.
Absolutely.
Honestly, Emily, I feel like I could talk about the benefits of hosting a wedding or an event at a hotel venue literally all day long. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of last minute highlights, or this may turn into literally an all day long podcast. You do have a couple of random dates left for fall of 2024, but you are actively booking for 2025 and have opened up 2026 dates. A couple that is getting married at any venue can work with you on room blocks. They don't necessarily have to be getting married here to do that. Plus, your guest parking is free for anyone attending an event or staying here, which is a huge perk for everyone. The venue is ADA accessible and very easy to navigate for all of your guests. If someone is interested in reaching out to you, they can go to thecampbellhouse.com, click on the weddings tab, and submit their information, or they can email you directly at emily.mayworm@hilton.com. That is MAYWORM, just like it sounds. I always like to tell my couples to give vendors a couple of days to respond, especially if they email over the weekend, because you are probably hands-on for, well, I know that you're hands-on for the events on the weekend. And a lot of times vendors are not working on Monday. So it may be Tuesday before you respond. So just be patient on a response. Emily, thank you again for joining me today. I am so happy to be working with you. And I know that when I send couples to the Campbell House that they are in good hands. For more information about Simply Love Studio or to schedule your wedding consultation, go to simplylovestudio.com.